Well, hello, hello. We are back with the Real Estate Tech Roundtable. I am Tim, and I'm here with the amigos, Kirk and Khalid, to discuss the latest real estate news and trends and some big news dropped last week on Inman. They published 5 articles about various lawsuits going on in the residential real estate space. So it seems like there's, significant potential for things to get disrupted. Here's one of the quotes I found that summarizes things pretty well. The Morrell case has been a bombshell since day one, but in the years since it began, it has also become part of a broader set of forces putting pressure on the way agents, particularly those who work with buyers, get paid. In addition to the Morrell case, there's a similar Stitz-Burnett lawsuit that was also filed in 2019. Then there's an ongoing legal battle between NAR and the US Department of Justice. And there are a smattering of other lawsuits, such as those filed by discount brokerage Rex Real Estate that attack the real estate establishment, raise antitrust issues, and take issue with compensation models, among other things. So amigos, I just wanted to ask you guys, how are you? There's all this, something big's happening in the residential real estate space. So just get your guys' opinion on, if it does go through, it looks like something's going to happen. What are you guys going to do to work with buyers, work with your sellers, work with, make sure that your business is protected?
Like how do we navigate all of that? Yeah. And frankly, Khalid has been following this all very closely. So I was curious, kind of like, where are we with all of this? Because even reading the articles, it's hard to tell kind of where this is going, but like, what's your assessment of kind of where we are right now?
Yeah, I think so. Right now, the Morrell case is supposed, which is the larger of the two. There's the Morrell and Stitzer, and they're in 2 different jurisdictions. The Morrell case is set to be, I think, decided. It's going to trial in beginning, and actually it's already in trial, but it's I think that the case is supposed to wrap up by March of 2023. So there's going to be some type of action that happens there, and it'll be immediately appealed, like no matter what side it's on, and it's no doubt will be like raised to the Supreme Court, whether or not they hear it or not, I don't know. So I think there's like still a lot, like nothing is changing right away. Like I don't even think any changes would really probably come down for another, I would say, a good year, 18 months or so. And I think that's the best case. So there's still a lot of time.
And then in terms of, and what really is that case, right? Like to Kirk's, I was thinking the same thing as Kirk. There's a lot of cases going on. Like what's specific about Morrell, Spitzer, Burnett?
Yeah, so the difference between Morrell and Spitzer are basically the same cases that are in 2 different jurisdictions but the Morrell case is bigger than the Spitzer case. The 3 largest, the 3 of the largest, most prominent law firms in the United States kind of joined forces to look at the real estate industry and said, hey, why is a seller who, in order for them to get their home exposed on Zillow, why does this seller have to pay a real estate agent, a buyer's agent, a fee in order to get, their home exposed on the MLS? Like why should the listing agent have to pay a buyer's agent fee? Because the buyer's agent technically is working against them, right? The buyer's agent works for the buyer, the listing agent should work for the seller. So why should that happen? And why should I have to, in order to access, basically the internet, pay that fee? And I think the bigger question here became around like, why haven't, prices have been rising for, home prices have been rising for a long time, but real estate commissions have held relatively steady at like 2.5–3%. Why haven't real estate commissions gone down despite lots of innovation, like across markets, which usually drives down cost of service. So that got the attention of the big law firms.
And it is really interesting because, Rex has seemed to have had a very big part in some of these lawsuits too. And Rex had a really interesting model where I think the seller would pay the listing commission, but the buyer broker would get listing. The only way the buyer broker could get listing commission is if I think directly from the buyer, I believe. But I guess ultimately what's so interesting is this could be like a game changer for the entire industry.
Yeah, I agree. On the topic of Rex, look, I think Rex tried to innovate in many ways, but I think they also got a lot of things wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't discourage anybody who's, trying to, make their way and, build something that they're passionate about, which I know the founders of Rex very much were. But, a couple of things that I think they got wrong. One is, they would, if you wanted to see a Rex listing, oftentimes you were routed to somebody, you're looking at a property in LA and you're routed to somebody in Colorado, right?
Right.
I don't want to talk to somebody in Colorado about a house that I'm looking at in LA. That's not, so it's like they sought to create efficiencies without sort of the appreciation for what real estate really is, which is local. Like real estate is local. And, I think some of the other things they did was, they, I think that they took a much harder line against real estate agents. And I think that there was opportunities, even if they really wanted to, maintain their model of, savings. I think there was a way to be a little bit more inclusive with real estate agents. So I'm not sure that they went under only because of the external circumstances. I think some of the ways they ran their business accounted for their kind of demise as well.
Well, and it's interesting because I've inherited a lot of Rex listings over the years, and the way, in a way, they operated in the same way that Redfin operated, which not everyone, some people don't have a problem, but a number of the clients that I inherited didn't like the fact that there was a team handling different aspects of the listing. And at least with Rex, there was the initial guy that they met with who they never really heard from again because there were like different teams along the way. And then I think on marketing, the key aspect of like not using the MLS, I think it actually hurt them. As powerful as Zillow is as a marketing platform, I think that hurt them in a way too. And it's interesting because the role of the MLS is central to a lot of these lawsuits too. And I think there are a lot of pros, but there's also a lot of cons to the way the MLS system works. And I can see, that, I mean, you read some of these articles about where this is going, and it does seem like a very compelling case to kind of change things up.
Yeah. Oh, no, I was just gonna agree. Yeah, no, it definitely seems like things are gonna change. One of, going back to the Rex point, one of the cases, or one of the articles was about the Rex case, and it says more than 700 agent steering calls suggest price fixing, lawyers charge. So in the Morel case, lawyers singled out hundreds of phone calls in which agents steered business away from discount brokerage Rex. So I don't know. It's like they might have done some things wrong, but then maybe the industry as a whole kind of did something wrong also. So.
To that point, like what I think really started hurting Rex, I think that they had some internal things, and I think their business model, but what really was the nail in the coffin for them is Zillow signed a partnership, a deeper partnership agreement with a lot of the MLS systems, which are mostly owned by the National Association of Realtors. And when Zillow signed that, the Association of Realtors forced Zillow to hide Rex's listings, which used to all be commingled, right? There'd be a Coldwell Banker listing, then there'd be a Rex
Oh,
listing right next to it. Consumers wouldn't know the difference, right? Then the Association of Realtors said you can't do that per the IDX agreement. So it forced Zillow to hide behind like a deep, deep background of their site, all of the Rex listings. Nobody's ever going to see those listings. And
right.
I think in that way, I think that the National Association of Realtors really took things probably a little bit too far. And I think they might have written their own,
is that like this
their own death warrant with that.
Is that like in terms of this anti-competitive,
Yeah.
the DOJ versus the NAR in anti-competitive practices and in competitive practices?
Yeah, I mean, if the best way I think they tried to maybe fight fire with fire in the same way that, Rex should have probably taken a little bit of like a pivot to be a little bit more cooperative. I think that NAR, the National Association of Realtors, can, really look internally and say, hey, like, do we have an issue here? Like if the MLSs work, which they always say, like, MLSs are pro small business. I believe that. MLSs are pro consumer. I believe that too. All of these things. Well, why are, then let's be a little bit more open to what the future of compensation can look like, or let's be open to, hey, if we change some of these rules, is the whole system going to fall apart? The whole system falls apart, on the commission side because you changed one rule. It wasn't a good system to begin with. And I think that, real estate agents that demonstrate their value and show their value and prove their value to the customer are never going to have an issue. And those people are career agents, not your, one hit, one hit a year, one deal a year agent that really isn't well qualified. Agents that treat their business as a business are going to do well and are going to maintain their value. And I only wish that the National Association of Realtors would really have the value conversation rather than the protectionist conversation, which
I like that. Well, and I think, to add the commercial for NILE here, I think, the tech-enabled brokerage is very much a brokerage of the future in, no matter how this all works out, because I think if the status quo continues, then we're fine. But I think even if even if this happens, I think agents of the future need to have the tools and they need to provide value in more ways than one. And so by being a tech-enabled broker or agent is one way to give your clients the best experience.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that there's even further than tech, like, I look at agents that are, that can really go in and provide like other like areas of depth and knowledge, like maybe it's design, or whether it's media, or whether it's advertising, or whether it's renovations you can flip, or like Kirk, you've obviously worked with a lot of developer clients. So it's like, you really have expertise beyond just like pure transaction, like purely running a transaction. And, I remember there's a side agent that we talked to a while ago, and, he really talked about how he's really adapted his business to be much more of like a consultant. And he's like, he really is careful about like, and methodical about finding properties for, his clients, and, putting in the extra work to really like figure out where they want to be, identify like potential, properties that can be a good match and go after them. And I like that, because I think that that's a great example of like building value for yourself as a professional.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And there are professionals that do have those various backgrounds, like the interior designer, the architect, the stager, flipper. Like, they all make really good agents because they have a skill set that they can bring to the table. But taking like one step further, now we're in this world where there's a lot of social media experts that can be helpful. There's a lot of like marketing people that, I even know a very popular agent from the agency came from a publicity marketing background at a studio and was able to like apply that. And so you're right. I mean, even I have a friend who works Malibu, and he knows every sale. He knows, when it's about to come on the market, who the agent is, who lives there, and he can like really talk in depth, like street by street knowledge. And so that's a really good point in terms of the value add.
Well, and those things, like what I love about that, especially what you just mentioned about the agent who knows everything that about a home, or, a home being sold, or, really like, or an agent that like, I love this type of architecture, like really like gets into that, is those things can't really be taken away, right? Like, yes, maybe like commission can change and things like that, but you can't automate those things. Like, you can't automate intuition. You can't automate, a really deep like expression of knowledge, like around something that you're passionate about. And that, I think that those are really like building that suite of skills, like based on what you are passionate about and what you're good at, like, and having a, inside of like, your kind of real estate career, really coloring that in with those elements, I think is important.
Yeah, and that goes back to something Robert Newman said a couple episodes back, where it's going vertical, right? Going vertical, whether it be, focusing on a specific area and lifestyle in that area, or like you're saying, architecture, a type of home built, we're in Los Angeles, around Los Angeles, there's very specific time periods of homes that people like, and being that expert, being that consultant, there's always
totally.
I think, and the other thing, like kind of going back to, and if you think about what could change, with these cases, and I'm pretty sure like there's going to be a change. I would say, there's a 60 to 70% chance that the plaintiffs are going to win. There's going to be, a pretty sizable settlement from, the big brokerages. But I think the outcome is going to be that there's going to be the option in the MLS to say, how does the seller want to pay the buyer's agent a commission, and how much? And I think that's going to be very clearly defined in the listing agreement. And then I think, there's probably a 20% chance that, the 20-25% chance that the market goes all the way and throws the book at the industry and says buyers have to pay their own commissions, and we're completely segregating that.
And that's what Morel is going after, right? Like, that's part of that.
Yeah, that's what they're really going after, is like to say eliminate the incentive. I'm not sure that doesn't feel in the spirit of capitalism to me, or like kind of in the spirit of like recognizing that, there's 3 million real estate agents in the US. Like, there's a lot of people that depend on this industry, to feed their families and, power their own, power their lives. And so I'm like, to eliminate that, I think it's like too extreme. But what's going to be good about it too is like, agents are, will also be able to, I think, really be able to like hone their skills even more, because it won't be a matter of like, you won't be wasting as much time, right? For buyers, say, say buyers pay their own commission and they're like, okay, I'm going to pay $10,000, to hire an agent to show a house. Well, for $10,000, then there's more structure to that, right? I'm going to work with you for X amount of dollars. I'm going to get paid up front, or I'm going to get paid 50% up front and 50% at closing. And, we're going to look at X number of properties, and here's what I'm going to do, and here's what I'm not going to do. And then it's like, it's a little bit less hustle for an agent, but like with less, but it's less hustle, but it's more structured, a little bit more certain.
Right. I think some of the articles were talking about like an a la carte kind of, I'll do, I could do this for you. I can negotiate for you. If there's some agents that specialize in negotiations.
Oh yeah.
So
There's
And
that whole approach too.
and there's some agents that, yeah, exactly. Like, hey, I found the house. I just want you to negotiate it for me. I found the house and I want you to just, I already negotiated. I just want the contract. And then there's people like, I think the larger swath of people are folks that really need guidance and assistance and will pay for that, right? Like, I mean, I've seen people, smart, sophisticated professionals, in society that completely like need major handholding and support during a real estate transaction, right? Like, so it's like that's not going to suddenly change. Buyers are not going to suddenly be like, oh, I'm sophisticated now, I'm going to do this. Like, they're still going to need guidance. And I think that there's going to be an offering for people to say, yeah, I'll provide the same service I've always done. Here's the cost to do that.
Well, yeah, we've talked about how the agent of like the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s for that matter, has been more of like a fiduciary type professional. And over the last like 15, 20 years, with the like proliferation of influencers, the objective of the agent, the star agent, has been more focused on sales and less focused on that fiduciary. And maybe this forces an evolution back to like that throwback kind of era too.
Yeah, I would love that. I mean, I think that one of the biggest failures of the national industry, and I think I know why they did it, and I don't think it was ill-intended, but the requirements to get a real estate license are the lowest I've ever seen. I mean, I mean, the bar is so low to get a real estate license, right? And I have to wonder if the reason there was to say, okay, maybe there was like some discussion of saying, hey, real estate commissions seem like they're pretty price fixed. Maybe if we increase the supply, we make it easier for people to get a license, there'd be more competition, in the business. But I don't think that happened. You didn't see prices change. All you saw was the quality of the professional drop. In my view. And I would really love to see, going back to a time where that real estate professional is, has that subject matter expertise about your friend in Malibu, that knows every street, right? And knows how to guide somebody and knows the ins and outs of a contract really, really well, and how to like carefully and methodically and deliberately represent their client. I think that would just be a beautiful thing that could happen to the real estate industry. That's a potential outcome of this. I would love
absolutely. I think so too. That could be an interesting thing, which leads me to a question that I had for you as I've been reading about this. And this is purely a hypothetical, but my theory, and you can tell me like if you agree or disagree, but when I was with Purple Bricks, there were markets like Orange County, San Diego, Sacramento, Phoenix, Dallas, Las Vegas, and then there's the markets in Florida that I think all were very receptive to the Purple Bricks discount model. They're markets where Redfin does well, where when Zillow was doing the iBuyer program, they did well. But for whatever reason, markets like San Francisco and LA, the core metro areas, did not do well. And what I think could happen if this lawsuit ends up becoming successful, I think that in those markets that are like San Francisco and LA in particular, it's a town full of middle managers where people are used to having some sort of professional handle some sort of duty. So I actually think that the outcome of these lawsuits may not necessarily have an impact in markets like this, just because it's so parochial here in a way, in the way we do real estate, and we're almost resistant, which is so surprising because it's Los Angeles, but I feel like as a whole, it's so resistant to like that kind of evolution and change. And so my theory is that it wouldn't change much here. but I mean, maybe it would, but maybe like as a whole, it wouldn't necessarily.
I think I have I have two thoughts there. One is a little bit of a tangent, but it's important. I think it will have an impact, because I think that when you change the rule, I think that it will, I think it's going to get a lot of attention. I think it's going to get a lot of press. I think you're going to get a lot of new players that are going to try and navigate, see an opportunity. On the flip side of that, one of the things that's also being litigated is, this clear cooperation rule, which I think is massively anti-agent, and I think it's actually very anti-seller too. And I think that what you may see in a market like New York, or New York too, but New York, San Francisco, and LA, where there's a lot of high net worth people. There's a lot of people that have that are private, right? That LA is not a market where you necessarily have a lot of open houses, or things are a little bit more safeguarded, because there's a lot of public people, or people on television, or people in media, or whatnot, that are opening their homes, and so there's a little bit more sensitivity around that. And what I'd like to see is the opportunity for agents to basically corner their own markets, and really specialize in a deep area and say, this is my inventory and this is what I have, and if you want access to this inventory, you kind of go through me. And it's less, so it's maybe the total commissions do change, but I think the opportunity for an agent to really corner their own part of the market, to offset those commission costs, I think could be really interesting.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think, so just reading some of the comments on some of these articles, a lot of agents think, not much is going to change. It's going to be, more disclosures, more boilerplate, hey, seller, if you want to sell your house quickly, then we need to offer a buyer, a buyer commission, to stimulate demand. We need the agents, buying agents bringing clients through here. And they point to, some other markets that are not part of the national, some MLSs, not part of the National Association of Realtors, that they don't require it to put a house in the MLS to give a buyer's broker commission, but a lot of sellers do, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of different opinions on it, and it's kind of I think, what's going to be the catalyst to change things? Like you're saying, Colin, I can't disagree. Once it becomes big news, then people selling their homes are going to say, hey, I want to, it's more negotiable maybe. And I know people can negotiate it right now, but it's going to bring, I think it's really more about this transparency of what am I paying, who am I paying it to, and what am I getting for that?
What I think one of the flaws in the arguments on the NAR side is I think they could have gotten ahead of this a while ago and said hey, we're going to be more it was only in the last 3 or 4 months that now MLSs are starting to publish buyers agents commissions on the MLS that's syndicated to Zillow, so you can see that. That wasn't, I think that there were ways to be transparent earlier and they resisted that. But to me, it's, if it's the buyers, if I go to, if you ever go out to eat or something like that, or maybe you're you go to some corporate event or something and you're great, I'm gonna have another martini, I'm not paying for it, I'm not even gonna drink the whole thing, I'm just gonna, it's not, when it's not your money, doesn't matter. But as soon as it becomes the buyer's money and they say, hey, I have $30,000 on $1 million home, that's mine, what do I want to do with this? Do I want to divvy it up to an agent? Do I want to, the buyers, I think, are going to start making more thoughtful decisions. Right now, buyers don't see that money, and it's like, I think the question becomes, and I think this is actually going to be very clearly litigated, and I'm curious to see what the outcome is whose money is it? Is it the seller's money? Is it the listing broker's money? Because I think, the contract technically says I'm going to hire the listing broker, and the listing broker pays a cooperation fee. Is it the buyer's money? And I think that that's one of the things that nobody's really been clear about. And, NARs haven't been clear about it. The plaintiffs haven't been clear about it. And I'm like, and so I think whose money is it? I think it's going to be an interesting question.
I think that's a really interesting question, and how like the semantics and the specifics about how this would all be executed too.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a listing agent's money, they can say, I'm going to offer $1 and I'm going to keep the rest. Or if it's the buyer's money, then the buyer can say, hey, I'm going to pay $5,000 of that to an agent, or $10,000, and I'm going to credit the rest. Or I'm going to, if it's whoever's, if it's the buyer's agent's money, then it'll stay the status quo. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But I think at the end of I think the fact is there's a turning point coming up. I don't know where, I don't know if that turn is left, right. I don't think it's straight. I think there's something happening, and I think you just have to really continue to innovate, continue to be at the forefront of your own expertise, and continue to hone your own expertise. For example, right? Like, I think if you looked at like Kirk and I work so well together because we're very different people, right? Like, you can do a lot of things that I don't do well. Like, even in terms of, I've seen you, manage clients and just navigate circumstances. I think there's things like, that I enjoy doing as far as like structured operations that aren't as like, that where I don't exceed as well on like, a pure sales ability. And I think that what's going to happen is, when you're able to really you're able to just really define your market and define your expertise, and just really, really double down on that. And, using tools like, whether it's NILE or using, or design or whatever it is, whether it's technology, like find where you really, really have a knack, and, triple down on it.
Yeah, I like that. And I think every agent has a thing or a population or there's some sort of thing that they can specialize in. And I think, I would love, as we build out the brokerage, to make that part of our like process in helping agents like really build out their business, is like figure out what that like one thing is, and really kind of like get that going too. Because like for example, my TV background, when I initially was starting in real estate, I kind of wanted to keep it quiet, and I didn't want to make a big deal about it, because I thought that I thought that clients would, and even other agents would, think that I wasn't serious because I had my like foot in two different worlds. And it was weird because like it was completely the opposite. Like, people love it and think it's fascinating, and it's been like a source of lead generation too. And so, but that's just one thing. Like, of all the other people that we interact with, everyone has a thing, and so so I think that's a good idea. And these changes will just force people to innovate more, and force people to kind of dig in and figure out their best, what that one thing is too.
Yeah, and I think to me, and maybe this is a little bit controversial, but I'd really like to see the industry move away from what I see as like values like beauty or likability, or I look at some of these, like this Selling Sunset, and I'm just like, I feel like it's so sad, because this industry has become peddling the most superficial elements of a person, over what we were just talking about of like, what am I exceptional at? What do I bring to the table that somebody else doesn't bring to the table? Because you're gonna sync up, right? If there was a ultra type A client, I would be a good fit for them. If somebody's like really needing a lot of like, deep hand holding, I'm probably less than a candidate, so it's like, and I think that's a great thing because it really lets, like, it creates this universe of specialists, more like, doctors, podiatrists, urologists, orthopedics. It's like, go to the person that meets this criteria because they're the best at it and they do it better than anybody else. I think that's cool. And I would love to see real estate migrate towards that. And I think that this moral case could really start to pave the road for a better industry, even if it means that there's going to be some pain along the way.
Yeah. Well, and it's, I guess to summarize, it's like, the status quo is okay. And, it seems like there's something coming from, just listening to you guys talk. Something is going to happen in the next year, in the next 2 years. And for agents to have longevity into the future, it's kind of like, find your thing, develop your expertise, cultivate your knowledge deeply in a vertical, and you'll be fine, right? Mm-hmm. You'll be fine. You'll be able to be more than some sort of marketing gimmick. Be an expert, be a consultant, deliver value, and you'll be fine, and you'll have a client base, and they'll keep using you. And I think just as far as technology, that's going to help, separate yourself, help you, streamline your business, help you, stay in touch with clients in market. So
work hard, right? And
keep hustling.
Yeah, keep hustling. And the agents good agents, like Kirk is going to be massively more successful, and people like him are going to be massively more successful when this rule changes, because it's going to weed out all of the actors in this business, who, not actors in the traditional sense, but people who are coming in and fair weather agents who are selling one deal a year and that's it. It's like, it's going to
you can't be a professional doing it once every now and again.
No.
So I like that. This is a profession. Treat it as a profession.
Well, and it's like, as opposed to like a flashy used car salesman type person, maybe this is taking it more to the kind of experience you have when you go to your like financial planner or your accountant, or and maybe bringing, or an attorney that's handling your estate or something. This is the idea is maybe to get, I like the silver lining aspect of this, is that this is forcing people to get back into that mindset.
Yeah, and the 20 or 30% chance, call it said, of nothing happening, then you're just a better agent also. If all these cases lose, you'll set yourself up for success. So thanks guys. I mean, this was a great one, and I'll put all the links to the articles in the show notes and descriptions. And so it would be great to get everybody's feedback on what they think is going to happen.
And this is the point in the show where we send people more information. And in this particular case, you can go to poweredbynile.com.
That's right.
Perfect. Powered by NILE. Thank you so much, and have a great day.